Sarah Larsen. I'm so excited that you guys are with us. This is one of the great things that we get to do is share with you the things that we love. And today you're with Greg Roach, who's been to Egypt over 20 times, with Greg Larsen, who's returning to Egypt after over 20 years, and with myself, who got to experience my dreams come true last year. And we're going to go through this webinar, through this time with you, sharing these beautiful insights that we have from each of these regions, from our different perspectives. And we're so excited to take you with us to this on this beautiful journey through photos, through emotional experiences that we've each had there. And so welcome Greg Roach. Thank you for making time and sharing your beautiful pictures.
It's always a pleasure. You know, I'm a very, very blessed person. I travel all over the world with beautiful souls, beautiful groups of people as we go and explore, have these spiritual adventures to places like Bali and Egypt and Morocco. And of all the places that I go to, Egypt is the most powerful, the most transformative. It's where my own personal spiritual awakening happened, and it's the one that's closest to my heart. So, and you know, last year we had such a phenomenal trip with the group that we took in the summers, you know, Sarah and I. And so I'm thrilled that we're going, not only are we returning, but that the three of us are returning, and that, you know, Sarah, you had the insight about building the trip around A Course in Miracles. I'm so excited. It's going to be amazing.
It's so awesome, and it's such an exciting thing to be able to bring Greg Larsen, or Baby Larsen, as we've been referring to him. Baby, I'm so excited, and what is it that you want to share right now?
Well, you know, there's a whole depth to Egypt that is phenomenal. And as we've been preparing for this, I've been reminiscing about my trip there when I was a college student, and now going back as a husband and a father and a spiritual teacher, all these things, and the maturity that I've, gained along the way. And when I was there the first time, I was kind of like, as a, college student looking around, being awestruck by these sites, but I didn't have the depth and to really enter into what those experiences were. And now going back, it's almost like going back with new eyes and a new appreciation and really a sense before I'm even there about how profound this place is and how just life transforming these temples are. So I can't wait to go back and to share that experience with all those who join us.
Awesome. And we're doing the Course in Miracles in the Land of Miracles. And so tonight's talk is going to incorporate all of the 20 years worth of experience that Greg's had, and also these great aspects of miracles that occur in Egypt. And so as you're watching, as you're participating in this, we want your questions, and all of you that are listening, and even afterwards, we'd love to hear your comments, and we'll go through. This land is amazing that we get to experience, and we want for you to have all the gifts, all the miracles, all the honest. And so let's get started. I'm going to pull up some of the pictures. Oops. Let me go back to screen share. And Greg Roach, I'm so excited for you to start here on, this is just the miracles, A Course in Miracles in the Land of Miracles. And we are doing this because there is something so wise and profound in the book, Course in Miracles, and there is something, an energy that happens as we're going through the daily lessons, as we're going through the books. All of the fear begins to dissolve into the correct seeing of love being possible. And one of the great things about this trip is when we're standing in the pause of the Sphinx, and when we're standing in these places, such transformation happens. And so why do you do these trips? It is just so everyone that knows why you're doing this, so we can share that with everyone.
Well, for me, the first thing that happened was, a few years ago, I had a personal and very profound spiritual awakening in Egypt that at the time really just, rocked me back on my heels and ultimately completely changed my life. And I spent many years grappling with the implications of what occurred to me in Egypt and what I experienced and what my calling was as a result of that. And so, really, any of the trips that I do, it's about spiritual awakening, facilitating spiritual awakening. And one of the things that I've learned is that, when we go outside of our habitual frame of reference, when we go outside of our habitual frame of experience, we give ourselves a kind of permission to grow and accelerate our spiritual growth in ways that can be more challenging, when we're at home going through our everyday kind of routines. And it's fascinating to me because Egypt really, there truly is a very special energy there, a very special spiritual energy there, and it's something that the ancient Egyptians were completely versed in, that they were completely aware of, and that they constructed their entire spiritual science, their entire spiritual system to be in service to. And so what you have is a unique and powerful spiritual emanation from the land that flows between the Nile River, the sites in Egypt, and all of the cosmos. It's no accident that the Great Pyramid at Giza is where it is, for instance. And and then you have a way of thinking and a way of being and a way of perceiving that's literally embodied in the temples. And we'll talk about that here in the next couple of slides.
And I love how we did processes and ceremonies in each of the temples that were demonstrated, some of which were demonstrated on the walls that have been on the walls for thousands and thousands of years. And some of these temples have just been dug out and shared from this perspective. We got to experience things that were truly miraculous on the last trip as well. And so, awesome.
Absolutely. And so, the way that all of these things, and so then you have, in the Course of Miracles, you have a quote-unquote, modern system of spiritual science and spiritual transformation. Of course, I put that in quotes because this ultimately is a wisdom that is older than humanity itself. And as anyone that's familiar with the Course in Miracles knows, this is channeled material. So this is coming from a much greater, vibrational sphere than just the mundane 3D world. And so, when we combine all of these things, I just think that the spiritual acceleration of the places and of the land and of the work that we're doing is really going to be phenomenal. So one of the things that we're really blessed to do, because we've been going to Egypt for so long, and because we have very, very dear and close friends there, Mohammed Nazmi, Emil Shaker, there are partners in Egypt, we're able to do things like have a private visit inside of the Great Pyramid. So we'll go, just our group, 2 hours to be alone inside of the Great Pyramid, the entire structure accessible to us. We'll be able to go and stand between the paws of the Sphinx. We're going to be sailing the Nile aboard a beautiful, luxurious, 5-star private cruise ship. It's called the Dahabeah. It's the Afandina. And of course, we're going to be visiting all of the major temples, many of them privately, and along the way. And so, again, in a few slides, I'll share with everyone how these temples correspond to the spiritual progression of the subtle energy body. What in the Eastern schools is referred to as the chakras, and there's a fascinating set of correspondences there. And then, of course, we're going to be doing an in-depth exploration. We're going to be diving deep into A Course in Miracles.
What's really beautiful is the last trip that we took, which was really quite incredible. The last trip that we took we had a woman that was told that she would never get married in this lifetime. And she's engaged to be married, and she's putting all over Facebook these beautiful images of her upcoming wedding. We had a woman whose husband had died, and she herself had such painful experiences of not feeling alive, and she transformed to where she's really able to participate with her community. We each had so many. We had a little unseen baby, a pregnant woman on the trip with us, and it was so beautiful to experience that and get to know each other in these great journeys out to truly become friends, and so much more possible. So the people that come on this trip are phenomenal as well in allowing, and it was the perfect mix for everyone on the trip to after being on these tours in these temples privately, because of who our partners are in Egypt, having the availability. And I'm so excited to show some of your pictures, but we get to experience things, and we get to experience them with groups, and there's a total immersion, a total letting go of everything and most anything that limited us before. And so beautiful. Here we go with, this is the first picture that I think, let's see if I can get the screen to share.
You might be able to get there just by using the right arrow key, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
We'll see what happens next. Baby, do you think you could come up for a second and see if you could help me with this?
Sure.
Okay, awesome.
So while Greg is doing tech support for us, I just wanted to speak very briefly to Sari, to your last point. You're absolutely right. There is always such a beautiful synchronicity around these trips, and this is one of the things that I love about what I do, and why it is such a calling. Very often, people are called to join us. There we go. That's what we're looking for. People are called to join us, and they're at a transformative point in their lives. So they lost someone, they're dealing with an illness. There is the illusion, the appearance of a lack of equilibrium, of pain, of suffering, whatever the case may be. And invariably, because of the shared intention of this like-minded group of souls, we create a safe space where we can explore, where we can express. And I have seen over and over and over again these transformations, these healings, where the old idea of a person's life is just left aside. And that's one of the things that we encourage people to do. It's, come with what your intentions are. Come with knowing what you're going to leave behind, knowing what doesn't serve you, that you're going to transform beyond. So this image right here, it illustrates the fact that, and this is only something that's relatively recently been discovered, was a man named Schwaller de Lubitz, through his work at Luxor in the south of the country, that really discovered this. But the ancient Egyptian temples were built to mirror the human body. So every temple the ancient Egyptians said that the body is a container for the soul, for the spirit. And so the temple needs to be a container for the spirit. And so it's been realized or discovered that the temple really did mirror the form of man, or the form of a human being. And so as you move through the temple from the outer space into the increasingly more and more sacred spaces, you move up into a rarefied spiritual energy. And this is a progression that corresponds to the traversing up the subtle energy body of the chakras, from Muladhara, the root chakra, all the way up to the crown chakra. Here in just a bit, I'll talk about what the big arc of that spiritual progression is. And, of course, this is really ultimately the purpose and the intent and the focus of A Course in Miracles. It's a return to love. It's a return to unity. It's a return to the truth. And that is what every Egyptian temple is designed to do. that is what the great spiritual progression of the mystery schools did, and I'm going to show how these temples progressed as we moved through the country. This is the spiritual progression that every initiate goes through as they are on the path. So it's really, really quite beautiful to me how all of these things lock into one another. As we return to love, we return to unity, we return to living and walking and breathing the fundamental truth of creation. And so, Sarah, if you can jump over to that next slide for us. And there we go. So on the left, we have the Nile River, which has always struck me as being very much like the human spinal column and the way that it comes up and blossoms in the brain. And then, again, just as in the previous slide, running up the middle are the chakras. And then on the right-hand side, we've got some images of the Egyptian gods from Isis, Horus, etc. So, and then in the next slide, we've got specific correspondences between all of these things.
What's amazing, Greg, is when we go through all of these amazing temples, is you feel it in your physical body as well. At least for myself and many of those that were walking with me, as we progress slowly from statue to statue, from walking the paths that many pharaohs would have walked, many that came before us walked, there was a palpable feeling that occurred in my body. And so it's so exciting. And others were sharing how it amplified what they were feeling in those regions. We got to talk about and share all the things that were coming up in that, meaning if it was in the root chakra, and the root chakra standing for how the world exists, and then just above it, how we are, what we create, and what we're here to see in all of life, that duality, the polarity. And then walking through the conversations would really move into the solar plexus and talking about the energy of will and mastering our lives, and really coming to where our heart was fully awakened, self-expression, so much clarity coming through. And we did that in each of the temples. They built these so precisely that today we can't, the architects cannot even replicate the preciseness with much of what the temples back then were built with. And it corresponds exactly when measured out, it measures out to our own physical body. It measures out to what is written in the Vedas, what's written in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, what's written on the walls of Egypt. It's pretty profound.
It is. It's completely profound, and it's really, at times it's an overwhelming mystery to confront. There's no doubt that there was a great level of not only spiritual and cultural accomplishment, but the technical accomplishment. And because history, it does not move in a straight line; it moves in spirals and arcs. We have gone through a dark phase, so to speak, where so much of this ancient knowledge has been lost, and it's now in the process of being reborn. And you're absolutely right. You feel this in your body. You feel it in your psyche. You feel it in your subtle energy body when we are in these places. You just respond to it on so many different levels.
Wonderful. And there are images that are written, sort of the hieroglyphics that we're looking at throughout Egypt make such a profound impact, because I feel there's a code there that is unlocked. And I love your story that you shared about when we went to the temple where this flower of life is marked, Abydos, and that energy and what that was like for you and what's available there.
Absolutely. Well, and Abydos is where my own personal spiritual awakening happens. Just came completely out of left field. There were no precursors to it. It was the last thing in the world that I was expecting. And I had an extremely profound awakening experience, a vision, an utter out-of-body experience. It was all about the flower of life. Just a few minutes after I saw it inscribed on the walls of the Assyrian for the first time, and that just completely changed my life. So. Sarah, can I ask you please to go back to the slide, the last of the diagram slides with the chakras and the list of the...
Sure, let's go back one slide.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. So I just want to quickly share with people that as we move through the temple, starting at the Temple of Isis and going all the way up to the Giza Plateau, that the progression that we go through is, we begin in unity. We're born in unity. We are created in unity. All of creation happens in a state of unity. But as soon as the unmanifest becomes manifest, as soon as the invisible becomes visible, you inherently are in the realm of duality. And so our experience of unity gets sort of buried and sublimated in all of the illusions of duality. And so we go from the Temple of Isis at Philae, the place of unity, to Kamambo. And Kamambo is a temple that's dedicated to two gods. And I'll show you pictures of all of these places a little bit later in the evening. And so in Kamambo is where we get to duality. It's also, this is the second chakra, the sacral chakra. And so oftentimes this is referred to as the sex chakra, where we experience the world through the lens of polarity. Next we come to the Temple of Horus at Edfu, and this is the solar plexus chakra, and this is where our will and our self-mastery comes into play, and where we achieve mastery over the lower energies of our experience. And then once we've done that, we begin to move into the higher realms of expression, and these are embodied. So the heart chakra, the throat chakra, the third eye, ajna, the brow chakra, these are embodied in the temple of Luxor, the temple of Hathor at Dendera, the temple of Abydos, which is corresponds to the throat chakra. And then finally we move, once we have explored these greater realms, these higher realms of experience and expression, clarity, truth, self-expression, love, compassion, we're now seeing beyond the illusion of duality. We're seeing the world as it truly is. And then finally at the crown chakra, we're able to achieve transcendence and ascension, which is where we return to a conscious state of unity. And this, of course, is what the Giza Plateau and the Great Pyramid, the energies that are embodied there, is transcendence and ascension. And this is ultimately the same progression that's being laid out for us in the Course in Miracles. We begin in unity, we move through the illusion of duality, we exert our will and self-mastery to move clearly into the realm of truth, the realm of experience, and the realm of true experience. And by so doing, we're able to return to a conscious state of unity.
It's so beautiful because each of the temples, as well as the progression, is laid out. Because the wise ones, those that created this, really knew truly how to allow those that were able to make it into the temples. And back when these were built, only priests, only the highest of the high would get to enter these sacred spaces and clarify all of their bodies for this process. And so we are on this journey that many throughout the ages, only the highest that had achieved spiritual mastery or spiritually were allowed, or were kings, or considered very powerful, allowed to go through this. And I want you to, anyone that's watching, want you to think about what it would mean for you if you were able to walk in these footsteps and really recognize all that's possible for you. when you think of kings and queens being given to at every level throughout their lives, the education, the wisdom, all resources available to them, and then these were the unseen things that they needed in order to rule their people, their lands. And this is, we get the opportunity, much like when you go to Disneyland and there's so many people that are waiting in line to go to the ride. What happens with Spirit Quest tours, what happens with Muhammad and with Emil, is we get the temples just to ourselves pretty much, and we get to experience and do the processes, and we get to experience the words this time that the Course in Miracles has offered. We get to see and analyze it through our mind, through our hearts, through all of it, to really truly come through how we intend to be in life. The kings and queens, the wise ones, get to show up exactly how they want to, and that's what becomes available for you as well.
Absolutely, and I love your analogy of Disneyland. Yeah, we do have sort of a fast pass. We get the backstage tour of a lot of these things, and that's, you know, one of the things that is important to us in spiritual terms, is that we're able to approach these sites with the right kind of consciousness. And so we don't travel just as tourists. I mean, obviously that's important. You know, we're going to a very exotic place, so, you know, we don't ignore that aspect of it. And so maybe, Sarah, if you want to jump back over to the slide of the Mina House. We begin our journey in Cairo at the Mina House, which is really, honestly, one of the most beautiful hotels that I've ever had the privilege of experiencing and staying at. It is quite literally in the shadow of the pyramid. And so these are the grounds of the Mina House. We've got several pictures of it here. And so you can see, you know, when you're sitting out on the balcony of your room, or when you're, you know, having dinner in the restaurant, or having breakfast at the little cafe, the pyramid is always, the Great Pyramid is always right there, just dominating your awareness, dominating your psyche, and dominating your field of vision, and dominating the sky. And it's a powerful, powerful thing to experience as you're you know, having your fried eggs.
And it's so much more than just fried eggs at the Mina House. We always get to experience this elaborate breakfast together, which is a great way to start the day, and to have this ritual that during the time that we're there, we're doing things while we eat, and we're experiencing the food there. And if we see food as living energy, we are immersing in the living energy of the food nurtured by the waters of the Nile, of the richest, darkest soil of that land. And it's such transformation happens on the physical level as well.
Yeah, that's true. And in this regard, we, in terms of the food, not only is it the best, but especially when we're on the boat and sailing, all of the food is completely organic, macrobiotic. It has come out of a field that morning, and then it's on our table, and, you know, prepared with expert, loving skill. So we're going to begin the trip in Cairo, and we will be staying at the Mina House, a very beautiful and very historic place. It's you know, about a century and a half old. It was the hunting lodge of the last king of Egypt. The armistice to end the First World War was signed there. It has, you know, seen celebrities and presidents, and, you know, you name it, have walked its halls. And so then when we leave Egypt, we'll go to the south, and there we will be getting on the boat. So there's a shot of the Nile near Aswan, and oh my God, it is such a beautiful, beautiful, restorative, healing landscape. You know, again, the energy from the water, the energy from the river, the energy from the land is just remarkable. But then we will go and we will board our home for you know, well over a week, as we sail the Nile privately aboard the Afandina. And so this is a small luxury cruise ship. It's what's called a dahabeah, which is a form of boat that was popular for centuries, and then the big cruise ships came along, and the dahabeahs were much less popular. But Muhammad has custom built this dahabeah, and so it's like we're on our own private bed and breakfast when we're sailing on the Afandina. And so, Sarah, we've got a couple more slides of it there. Yeah, there it is. And one of the things that we do, and you know, to see the Nile from this vantage, as you'll see here in these next slides, it really is like you are being transported back centuries or millennia to travel in this way. It's a very intimate, personal experience. So this is the main deck. You can see here we are. This is from our last trip, and you know, we're having lunch. There are as many crew people as there are those of us that are traveling, and we're able to do things like you'll see in this next slide. We just will dock the boat on the shore of an island and have a picnic. This is one of the things we did on our last trip. We've gone into local villages, and I've seen spontaneous soccer games with the locals. A few years ago, we were the accidental guests of honor at a local wedding. We just happened to get off, walk into this little village. I mean, no more than a few hundred people living in this place, and we walked right into the middle of a wedding ceremony. And so, as you can imagine, to the locals, it was like, oh, you know, what is going on here? And so, in very short order, we were just pulled into the celebration, and you know, it's the kind of experience that you just never, ever forget. And that's one of the things that sailing on the Afandina allows us to do. It gives us a tremendous amount of freedom, and flexibility, and intimacy as we're sailing the Nile.
What's really beautiful is the pictures don't do it justice, is my feeling. It's so beautiful to sit in this amazing estate room with library that's on the boat that was custom built. And Muhammad shares his stories of how the boat came to be, and each of us get this opportunity, this space to be in as we're moving down the Nile, looking out. We had quite a few ceremonies at night, a full moon ceremony, and the experience, actually it was a new moon ceremony, the Eye of Horus new moon ceremony that we did on the deck while the boat was floating down the Nile. So many guests slept better than they had in such a long time, and the staff that's there truly just enjoys us so much and really caters to and looks for ways to really make sure our needs are met. And this last time we got to get off the boat and go meet one of the staff members on the boat's entire family. We went to their home and walked around and saw just met their mother, which reminded me so much of my grandmother. It was such an amazing experience, and so many people remembered aspects of themselves in this custom-made boat, remembered experiences of what it felt like to be there before in previous lives, or in having visited this space in their dreams. So quite a profound, beautiful, safe space. And I really want to talk to you about the safety of this trip as well. I have a 8-year-old, I have a 10-year-old, and I would never risk my own safety in any shape or form. I would never risk not being there for them. And so when I was younger, I used to skydive, I used to hang glide, and then when I had my daughter, you know, the first few years, I wouldn't even go ice skating because I didn't want to bump my head and not be available for her. And when this trip, when I was initially invited last year, I really tuned in. That's one of the things that I know so beautifully, is how to tune in and see what's coming up and to experience. Is it safe? Will I be able to watch my kids grow up? And I got a very resounding yes last year. And this year, as we created this, and my husband's on the trip with us, so this is even more both of our children's parents on this trip. So I sat with and tuned in, and I know absolutely without a shadow of a doubt that we are safe. This is such a great experience for us to be in Egypt, which has had tours, which has had tourism, which has had commerce for over 5,000 years. People have been coming to this region, coming to this land. They love, love, love tourists. They love us to show us the best parts that the country has to offer. And they usually give the best that's available for those coming in. It's I heard this long before I had a friend from Egypt. Someone said Egyptians are the most loyal, most beautiful friends. Once you make friends with an Egyptian, it's like you're part of the family. And that's truly been my experience. They love us coming there. They're as committed to our safety as we are, and they want to share with us the best that they have to offer, the best that their country has to offer.
Oh, and there's no doubt that Egypt is, well, let's be honest about it. Egypt's safer than most American cities. And it's certainly safer than your own bathroom or your own kitchen, statistically speaking. So, and yeah, Sarah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the greatest assurance that I personally can give in this regard is, hey, I'm going. So, it's not like I'm just waving saying, you can have a nice time over there. No, Egypt is very safe and very stable. So, so now maybe we can talk about some of the sites that we're going to be.
So, Greg, we're losing you a little bit. I can't hear you, so I wonder what's going on with your sound.
I don't know. That's a good question. It shows
there
that
you
it's
go.
working.
That sounded. You touched something and it sounds okay again.
Ah, great, good. Always glad to solve a problem. So yeah, maybe we can talk now about some of the sites that we'll be visiting. So a couple slides ahead, past that lovely sunset, is next one. There we go. So far down in the south, right in the middle of Lake Nasser, is the Temple of Isis at Philae, and it's a temple that's built on an island. And this is dedicated to the goddess Isis, the goddess of magic, the goddess of generation. And this is one of the private visits that we'll have. What we do is we go privately to the site at dawn, and we go ceremonially into the Holy of Holies, and it's amazing to get there with the place completely silent, that beautiful silent stillness just before the earth wakes up in the hours before dawn, and to walk silently into the Holy of Holies, perform our ceremony there, set our intentions, because of course every seed germinates in the dark. It grows in the light, but it germinates in the dark. And so spiritually, this is one of the things that we do, is we set the seeds of our intention. We plant the seeds of our intention, plant the seeds of our future lives and of the future world that we want to walk in here in this phenomenal place of manifestation. And then we walk out as the rising sun greets us, and it's really one of one of the favorite things that I do. And invariably, it's one of the most touching things that people experience when they're in Egypt. So
it is so beautiful, and as I'm looking at the walls right now, again, I just set my intentions. And for each of us that are with us on this webinar, what I'd love to invite you to do, I know we're going to go through a couple more pictures of this temple. Philae really stands for love. And so giving yourself permission, or really right now as you're hearing my voice, I want you to think about something that you love and really know what you want. Something that you love, and to know something that you can create that you want to have. And as we go through these pictures, you're having the experience of having it now, having the trip, the temples, this energy partnering with you. Our eyes are the windows to our souls. This image is being on the back of our mind, meaning light comes in through our eyes and lands on the back of our mind. These temples, these images that only kings and gods would get to see, as you're, and the highest of the highest priests, these inner walls, I want you to think about what you love and what you want. And for these images right now to be connected with what you want and what you're creating and what you love. And so we're really in this positive, amazing, expansive mindset as we're watching the rest of the webinar and seeing these beautiful images that are present.
Well, one of the things that I have seen over and over again, and I know if someone's called to be on this webinar, if they're called to travel with us to Egypt, it's because they are returning to what they already know. They're there to awaken and to remember. And invariably, the people that walk these lands have done so before. They were high initiates, high priests, healers, light bringers in previous ages, and they are returning to an awareness of that knowledge. And that's one of the things that happens when we walk in these sites, is that it awakens such a deep remembrance inside of us, not only at a cellular level, but certainly at a soul and psychic and spiritual level. So I think we jumped a little bit ahead with the pictures. If we can go back, let me see, maybe 3 or 4, I think. There we go, a little bit further. Una mas. There we go, perfect. So after the temple of Isis, then we come to a temple called Kamambo, which is dedicated to 2 gods. It's dedicated to the god Horus, the hawk, and also to the god Sobek, who is the crocodile god. And this is the place, so this corresponds to the sacral chakra, to the 2nd chakra, and this is the place of duality, light and darkness, and the struggle, if you will, between light and darkness inside of us and in the world. And this was also a very important and powerful healing temple in the ancient world. And it's fascinating to go here and to see bas-relief carvings of surgeon's tools and a surgeon's tray that is identical to the kind of tray that a surgeon uses in a modern operating room. Scalpels, sponges, forceps, you name it. So it's a remarkable reminder of indeed how advanced the ancients were.
And it's so beautiful to witness. There's so many things on the walls that are unexpected as well. Recipes for herbal medicine. The tray was one of the coolest things to see, because that's exactly what we use in surgery to this day. It laid out the same way, which is incredible. The tools look exactly the same. There is no difference. And so it's quite profound that this wall, this was up for thousands of years, and what the energy that comes off of that is quite healing as well for what you've experienced and what you know already. The healers within also, thousands of years ago, they were using the same tools, or they knew what was coming, what would be so. And I love this temple for so many reasons. You make peace with all aspects of yourself, whether it's the parts that you really cherish or the parts that you wish didn't exist. One of the things that happened for me was really being able to see both aspects and seeing how both wound up allowing me to be the person that I am and to release any hold that either ways of those beings, the good one or the bad one, or mentally how I kept myself from being able to love myself, or showing up in the most powerful ways. Walking through the temples allowed me to marry every aspect of myself and to call upon the highest version available in that moment.
Well, and I think it's important to note that, in the ancient world, while obviously they acknowledged and were aware of the existence of, quote unquote darkness, they didn't delineate things into good and bad. The spectrum of polarity, of duality simply was. And so you could have a temple like this dedicated, to a god of light and a god of darkness, a god of the air and the god of the, the muck. And they are held in equal esteem. So, to the Egyptian worldview, light and dark did not mean good and bad. And that, I think, is also one of the central lessons from A Course in Miracles. The idea that, I live in a world of illusion, the illusions that I create inside of my mind. And everything that I look upon, doesn't mean what I think it does. And it's my own thoughts that destroy my equilibrium. So, again, I find so many correspondences between the ancient wisdom and the sites and the way that these cosmic energies are embodied as the different gods, quote unquote gods, or netters as the ancient Egyptians called them, and the insights in A Course in Miracles. And so then we move on to the Temple of Horus. Take a couple more slides forward. So that's
Sobek.
Thank you so much. His name just went completely out of my head. Yes, that's the Sobek, the crocodile god. And then next we have Horus, and the hawk god. And that brings us to the Temple of Horus, which corresponds to the solar plexus. And this is really a place of mastery. And it's fascinating because one of the things that they have discovered at this temple is that this temple is built on top of a much older temple. But actually, almost every site in Egypt is that way, simply because the Egyptians, their culture and their history goes back so far into a time that we can barely even imagine. But that this temple of Horus was built specifically on top of the temple of Set, and Set was indeed a god of chaos, a god of darkness, and Set and Horus battled for many years. And there has never been a temple to Set that was found. And what they have discovered is that the temple to Set is here at this site, this, the god of chaos and destruction, and that the Temple of Horus has been built on top of it. And so the energy here is all about this mastery of the self, mastery of those lower chaotic forces inside of us, that then allows us to move into these higher realms of expression.
And it's quite extraordinary that that energy there that's present. And many of the images show sands moved. And many of the stories that we hear is of the discoveries of the temples. I mean, there was so much sand, and at some point the sand parted, or someone started to build a home, and when they were doing the foundation work, they found the temple underneath. And it's such a great story of Egypt, and I think it's very much our own story. When we're excavating to build something something new, something beautiful and profound gets found underneath the excavation and shows us an aspect of ourselves that was always present and upon which we get to build more organized, understanding, or loving ways of being. And so that's one of the cool things, to feel the temple underneath, to feel this temple on top, and to really become really familiar with experiencing what's possible as we organize, and our ability to see, our ability to feel love, our ability to let go of what was before an interpretation of something that we saw.
Yeah, beautiful. So these next 4 pictures are the Temple of Hatshepsut. It's called Deir el-Bahari, and it's one of the most beautiful sites in all of Egypt. It's so elegant, and we always go in the morning, and we'll go and visit the Temple of Hatshepsut, and then we will go and visit the Valley of the Kings, which is,
Move the pictures to the next slide. That's horse. There it is.
Yeah. So that's the Temple of Hatshepsut. That and the next 3 pictures, and it is such an elegant place, and it's truly a breathtaking backdrop, and just everything about it is aesthetically so pleasing and compelling.
And if you see how it fits into the backdrop of the mountains behind it, it's amazing that the energy, when it was discovered behind with these mountains, it's an amazing energy, and the rituals that were performed there, and what really takes place on each one of those steps as we're climbing into the temple. And I'd love for each person right now to just imagine what it's like to take step by step by step into this beautiful temple, Hatshepsut, and all that it represents. And then imagine what it's like coming down the stairs as well, fully amplified with the energy that's available and present. And it's hard to capture the scope of what it feels like, but this is a very large building and a very large encompassing experience. And when we're coming down, it felt like to me that I could fly, which is very representative of what this temple represents.
Nice. And then a couple slides ahead, we will get to the Temple of Luxor, and usually that's it right there. And Luxor is one of the largest temples in the world. And actually Luxor, Karnak, the Temple of Hatshepsut, all of the area around Luxor City, the modern city of Luxor, is a huge sacred landscape, a mind-bogglingly huge sacred landscape. There were, as Sarah was saying, there were processions that would happen on certain holy days, on the days of certain cosmic or solar alignments, that would travel for miles and miles and miles across this sacred landscape. So the Temple of Luxor is also typically referred to as the Temple of Man, and this is where Schwaller de Lubitz did a lot of his research. And in the next slide, you can see this is one of the big open areas, and these beautiful columns. This represents the rib cage, as remember as we're moving through the human body, on our way towards the Holy of Holies. Right now, we're in the ribs. The next slide is really quite fascinating. This is a picture of a mosque, and this is taken that when you see the mosque, you are down on the ground level of the ancient temple. When this mosque was built in the 9th or 10th century, 11th century, the ground level was 12 or 13 or I don't know, maybe 15 feet higher than where it was in the ancient world. So the mosque was built at the ground level, at that point in time. And then when the temple was excavated in the modern world, it left the door to the mosque hanging up in midair. And this is symbolic of so many things to me. First of all, the harmony actually in which the Egyptian people live. When you go up into this little mosque, which is so beautiful and such an evocative place, the walls of the mosque are literally built out of the columns from the ancient temple. And so here you have these millennia of spiritual tradition, of spiritual exploration, coexisting and living, side by side. It's quite a lovely thing to see. And then the next slide takes us to the Temple of Karnak, which is, if I'm not mistaken, even a little bit bigger than the Temple of Luxor. We tend to go to Karnak early in the day. Oftentimes we'll go to Karnak at dawn. And this is such a compelling place to be. The next picture is one of what we refer to as the Galilea boys. And I just love this picture, both of these next two pictures. I know both of these guys pretty well. And, first of all, it's so picturesque. Here they are in their beautiful blue and blue-green, turquoise robes against the dusky sand of the walls of the temple. But these guys, they're just so sweet and so loving and so welcoming of tourists. And in particular, when we go there and when we go with the intention that we carry, it's something that these gentlemen really respond to, because they spend their lives in these temples. And as a result, I find that they are very sensitive and very aware of the energies there and incredibly respectful of the energies there. It's like they're steeped in this deep awareness of what the ancients accomplished. And so when we come with the kind of respect and intention that we do, they always just love it. They really, really do. And so let me see. We've got a couple more.
Absolutely so kind as well. They will take you to, because we're there by ourselves quite often, they will take us to parts that others are not allowed to go into. And so it's just so spectacular. And they know Greg, they know Muhammad, they know Emil, and they know it's a spiritual group that's coming into this really holy of holy places. And so it's such a beautiful thing for them to experience our energy, for us to be able to communicate with them. Because they're used to so many people coming through, and they're able to sense our energy and take us to the places that really resonate with what they're reading with us as well. So it's so lovely.
And one of the other things I love about this picture is it gives you a sense, at least a sense, of the scale of this place. Look at the size of those columns relative to the man, and also this walkway that he's in, this huge processional way. I have seen this when there are 5,000 people in this space, 10,000 people in this space. And so I love the fact that here, it's completely empty, because this is one of the things that's important to us, that we are able to orchestrate these kinds of visits. And this next slide, it gives you a clear picture. One forward. Look at the artistry in this face. This is one of the things that still is just staggering to me, is the achievement that the ancients took their culture and their artistic expression to, this pinnacle of achievement thousands and thousands of years ago, working in some of the hardest stone on the planet with, as far as we know, or at least our Egyptologists believe, only bronze and stone tools. And they're working at the finest pinnacle of expression. It's quite an inspiring thing. And so let's skip ahead 2 slides. And one of the things that we do, you'll see in this slide and the next slide, is we go to a very special place. When we go and visit Karnak Temple, we go to the Chapel of Sekhmet. And this is a very, as you can see from the walls, really a tiny little space. It's right on the absolute perimeter of the temple, and it's closed to the public. It's, you know, we have to, we pull some strings to be able to get in there, and there's always a little bit of a cat and mouse game to get into this place. But one of the reasons that this is so important is that this piece of statuary, this Sekhmet, she's carved from black diorite, which is literally the only thing harder than diorite is a diamond. And this statue is about 8 feet tall, and she is in the original building where she was placed. She's whole and unbroken. She's on the same place in the earth where the ancient priests put her thousands of years ago, and the structure around her is still intact. And these statues are, I don't want to go so far as to say they're conscious, because for one thing, it's a spiritual technology that's obviously lost and that we don't really understand. But they are present, and there is a presence and an energetic presence to these statues that is startling at times. Now, you go into the Egyptian Museum, and you're in, you see thousands of these statues which have been pulled out of their original context and sort of jumbled all together, and the impact of that energy is lost. The impact of that consciousness is lost. And so to be here in the presence of this Sekhmet statue, in the Sekhmet chapel, with everything more or less intact the way that it was when it was consciously created thousands of years ago, is really, truly a stunning experience. And everyone I know that has been to this chapel with us, they're hard-pressed for words to describe it. And so that's one of the special things that we always make a point of doing when we go to Luxor Temple.
And it's often other tours and other places will miss this and not understand the alchemy that's available here with an open heart. Sekhmet is known as the magician, really truly allowing magic to come through, and there are so many great stories that our guide shared with us of what's happened in the temples at night and through their different tours. And Sekhmet really has the energy of magic, and really in this space, in this tiny little temple, some of the pictures that we've shown in the past and other webinars really highlight the light that's coming off and the living embodiment of alchemy magic that's possible that we get to then carry forward in our lives.
Absolutely. And we'll also be going to the Temple of Hathor at Dendera. So on the next slide, you'll see a carving of the face of Hathor. If you're familiar with the work of, say, Tom Kenyon, for instance, his work channeling the Hathors. And so this, Hathor is a goddess of childbirth, of joy, of music. And this is very much the energy that's embodied in her temple. And one of the things that we'll do, so there's a great precessional mystery that's encoded up in the ceilings of Dendera Temple. And in the next slide, you'll get a sense of a couple of things. Not only the scale of this, but of how really gorgeous these places were. This temple has been restored to a great degree. And so you can see the colors. The walls of these temples were all painted with paints that were made from precious stones, lapis lazuli, turquoise, red coral. And so you can imagine these were living jewels to the eye. And the next slide as well, you get a sense of what the color must have been like in the ancient world. And these are all from Dendera Temple, which is one of the best preserved of the ancient sites when it comes to this particular aspect. Now we're also going to be going down into the crypts in Dendera Temple. There are 13 crypts in the walls and the ceiling and underground in Dendera. And here in the next 3 slides you'll see this is where some of the most mysterious stuff I have ever encountered is found. It's carved on the walls of a very, very small space. This is one of the crypts that's underground. And you can see this figure here holding the knives, this lizard, ape, baboon thing. Nobody really knows what he is. He's not really a character or, you know, a god or something, a figure that you normally find. I haven't seen him anywhere else. And then in the next slide you can see something that looks very much like a large light bulb. It's typically how this is referred to as the Dendra light bulb. In this slide and in the next one, it's difficult to get a good picture of this because it's such a small space. So you can see how these fit together. And this bas relief carving is pretty large. It's about 8, 9, maybe 10 feet, you know, from side to side. And so there's some real mysteries that you confront. And in particular, when we go to Dendra, and then here in the next slide, we go to Abydos, and Abydos is where the real mysteries start to kick in. So first of all, on one more slide up, you can see that Abydos contains some of the finest religious art on the planet. The quality of the carvings that is found on the walls of Abydos is just gorgeous, really, truly, truly gorgeous. And Abydos, if we go just in the interest of time, I think if we jump maybe 4 slides ahead. Yeah, keep going. There we go. That's it. Ooh, back one. That's the one. And so these are some very famous hieroglyphs that are found up high in the ceiling of Abydos Temple. This is, if you look closely, you can see what looks very much like a helicopter, a tank, a plane, and a submarine, or maybe a flying saucer. So this is one of the mysteries that we will encounter when we're in Abydos. And then the next one, in our next slide, is this structure that's referred to as the Osirian, which is quite honestly the greatest enigma, as far as I'm concerned. It's the greatest enigma on the planet. And I think that this structure and what it contains is a huge key to the deep past of the human race. I think this is something that is basically hiding in plain sight. I think this is showing us and telling us that the history of humanity is much, much, much older than the orthodoxy holds, that archaeologists and Egyptologists tell us. Bless you!
Thank you.
That's a confirmation. It's a confirmation from Spirit right there.
Absolutely.
To say hallelujah. Spirit says amen.
Such a beautiful place. What you see on the walls there, what your eyes and your mind and your heart make available for you in this space. It's such a rich space. And this is what we were talking about with Roach's spiritual awakening. It really began with laying his eyes on the flower of light that's there. And so that's really beautiful.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, you know, this site, as I said, is to me a clear indicator of the true age of humanity and the true age of human culture. And that was one of the things that came to me in the years after my spiritual awakening. Was I began to have significant past life recall, and I was recalling crazy things, you know, very, very high levels of technology and culture, Atlantean, Lemurian, and so this site is a very important touchstone. And yes, it is. It's where we find the flower of life.
And again, it's not something that happens on a normal tour of Egypt as well. This is one we're blessed to have included.
Absolutely, yeah. This is, I mean, for most Egyptologists, archaeologists, and certainly most tours, this is just ignored. Like, people don't get it. They don't understand it. They don't know what it is that they're looking at. They don't know why it's important or why it's significant. So.
and we discuss, and we really get it on the mental level, we get it on the emotional level, and we experience the immersion of it on the physical level.
Absolutely. So I see we're running a little tiny bit behind. So in the interest of time, let's jump ahead like 5-6 slides maybe.
So 5 or 6 slides. Let's see what we got.
Yeah. So that's the Osirian. There's the flower of life. I think the next one is also a slide of the flower of life. And then, yeah, so there, that's one of the temples seen from the air, and you can really get a sense of the fact that it looks like a giant Lego man or a giant Lego person laying out on the ground. And then the next slide is the Colossi of Memnon, one of the really famous, iconic places in Egypt that, of course, we'll be visiting. And next slide is from one of the tombs in the Valley of the Kings. That's Horus, being supported by, I believe that's Ma'at. You can tell by the feather that she's wearing, and so that's the goddess of balance, basically. And then the next slide.
Discipline.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing to really see with our eyes.
So the next slide is a place called Saqqara, and that now is up in the north. Not that far from Cairo. So as we have worked our way up the Nile and visited all these remarkable temples and traversed the energies of our subtle body, from the root chakra through the sacral chakra to the solar plexus to all of the heart centers, the center of self-expression, then finally we come to the site that corresponds to the third eye. And so the next several slides you'll see here. So this is the step pyramid of Zoser, which has always reminded me very, very much of the structure of the pineal gland, which is, of course, the seat of our ability to see beyond illusion, the seat of our ability to perceive clearly. And one of the totems that you see here is rearing cobras. And of course, you know, the snake, the cobra, has always been used to represent the energy of the rising Kundalini. And I don't think it's any accident that the uraeus, the crown of the king, has a cobra that appears right above his third eye. And so again, the symbolism and the symbology of the ancients is, to me, such a clear set of markers about their understanding of spiritual science. And then, of course, a couple slides up, we will go to the Sphinx in the Giza Plateau. I just love that particular picture.
So beautiful.
Yeah, isn't it? It's remarkable. And here in the next few slides, you'll see the view that we are privileged to have as we stand between the paws of the Sphinx. This next slide is a little bit silly, quite honestly, but we were having a good time. we were goofing around. I've seen people play Nerf football in here between the paws of the Sphinx. You know, there's a giddiness that takes over when you realize where you are. It's a remarkable thing. So.
And, you know, Edgar Cayce, so many psychics, so many people share the significance of what the Sphinx is, and we get that information from people that were there and witnessed or heard firsthand stories of what has been attempted, what's been experienced, what's been seen around the Sphinx, and that it helps to solve and create so many changes just to stand there, of that playfulness, that energy, that it's just so amazing. So you can see that right there. Greg Roach, you're so on fire and just free in this.
Well, and I have to say, there is something that kicks in when you're down there, and you look up and you see, you know, the tourists 75 yards away, looking down at you, going, "How did they get down there?" You know, it's not positive spiritual value, but you can't help but gloat a little bit when you're down there. You try and keep that in check, of course. And then finally, we will end up visiting the Great Pyramid. And we will spend a lot of time, not only in the Giza Plateau and in the area of Saqqara. I didn't touch on some of the more out-of-the-way places that we will be visiting. Abu Sir and the Solar Temple there. I mean, we do a lot, and we go to a lot of really remarkable places. But undoubtedly, there's no place that can touch the Great Pyramid. And in particular, to be able to go in, and as you'll see in the next slide, to go and lie in the coffer inside of the King's Chamber, to have 2 hours in this site completely to ourselves in total privacy. So first of all, the Great Pyramid is only like 50 people are allowed in on a daily basis. They severely limit the numbers of people that can get in. And you have to go very early in the morning, stand in line. There's a lottery. It's quite complicated, and there are hundreds and hundreds of people that want to be able to get in. So to be able to go privately and have the entire structure to ourselves for our group is just mind-boggling. But then, when the few members of the public that are allowed into the pyramid, they're only let into the King's Chamber. It's the only chamber that's open. There are 3 chambers inside of the Great Pyramid: King's Chamber, the Queen's Chamber, and what's typically referred to as the pit. And this is the largest, most perfectly aligned stone structure on the planet. There is more stone in the Great Pyramid than there is in all the churches and cathedrals of Europe put together. And we could not create this structure in the modern world if we wanted to, and if we could afford to. But how the ancients did it, why the ancients did it, who of the ancients did it is a deep, deep, deep and abiding mystery. But when you are in the energy of the place, these are questions that become completely irrelevant. And so to be able to go in and have this site, and I can't even call it a site, to have this space, because it is an interdimensional portal. It is a spiritual interface to the heart of the cosmos. It is a nexus of time. It's a stargate. In every sense that word might carry with it, to be able to be there privately, just our group, to have access to the entire structure it's such a privilege. It is such a blessing, and it is such a gift. And to be able to lie in the coffer while the entire group is toning. The King's Chamber, there's so many remarkable things about the King's Chamber, but one of them is its acoustic properties. And, to have 15 other people there with you toning as you lie in the coffer and are transported out into the depths of the cosmos on the spirals of energy that course through that building and that awaken, to the intention sound of the human voice. There's been no other experience in my life that can touch it, other than perhaps my spiritual awakening in Abydos itself. So.
It's so amazing and so much fun. And as you guys are looking at this, I'm hoping everyone that's with us will visit each of these places that we saw in their dreams, and to really be relaxed around this trip that we just took. And to really experience what it might be like to be in this and to have remembrances of it, if that's possible. We want, the reason that we do these tours, the reason that I do this is because it's made such a difference in my life. To see these ancient places and to remember myself as the miracle, to remember all that's possible over a span of time, not just this lifetime, but many, many thousands of years. And it got me really in touch with what is truly important for me and what's possible. And so I'm hoping everyone that joined us has the most amazing dreams tonight. I know we've got one more slide to go through. the last slide there.
Yeah, so that's our phone number and my email address. So I'm just Greg at Spirit Quest Tours. And you can see all of the information on the website at spiritquesttours.com/miracles. And actually, I'm going to open up, let's see if this works. I just sent everyone the link to the website, and I think it should be opened up in a new tab for you. So please get in touch, give us a call, shoot me an email. Reach out to Dr. Sarah or to Greg. Swing by the website and take a look. We have a special gift for those of you that joined us tonight. You can save $500 on the trip when you sign up, and so you get set up with your deposit. Just use the code. There's a coupon, a place where you can enter a coupon code. Use the coupon code MIRACLES, and that will take $500 off the cost of your trip. And there's Baby Larsen, and there's Sarah. Now we're all back. Everybody's back live. So yeah.
We are, and it's been such a great journey, Greg. Thank you so much. And Baby Larsen, what did you think of this?
I'm blown away. It is so amazingly deep. These places that are on, the schedule to visit, and the opportunities we have to go in and experience transformation at a profound level. I'm just like blown away right now.
And me too, just revisiting these places. And I'm so excited to share, Greg Roach, all that you bring with 20 years worth of experience. Greg Larsen, with being able to tune into the current moment to share that. And then for myself, I would say that I really bring this aspect of heart along with each of us, knowing moment to moment that to connect so many dots and to really know what's possible with each person that's on the trip with us. And everyone that's been with us on this webinar, thank you guys so much. I'm hoping the $500 means a lot and you're able to come with us. We are constantly, Greg Roach, Greg Larsen, we're constantly looking for ways to be able to serve better, and we found that if you're wanting to make this happen, if you have questions for us, leave it in the comments and we'll get back to you. But most of all, just get in touch with Greg Roach to answer some of the questions that might be there around this trip and to lock in that gift of a discount for $500. So, Greg Roach, thank you for putting that presentation, all of those beautiful pictures together. Baby Larsen, thank you for doing the technical stuff and coursing through that. And everyone here, thank you. We will see you in the videos, the ongoing series of the Course in Miracles. And we're really looking forward to meeting you in person, quite possibly in Egypt.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.